Welcome to Talking Art Encyclopedia. Subscribe now and let's start the conversation.
Good evening. Tonight we go after the story of an American playwright who has been called a master dramatist with a terrifying knowledge of the secrets of the mind. He is Tennessee Williams, author of such powerful plays as A Streetcar Named Desire, as well as the scenario for the controversial motion picture Baby Doll. If you're curious to know how Tennessee Williams answers the charge that he is obsessed with tragedy, frustration, and despair, why he says he writes with a growing anger, and what he thinks of himself and the world around him, we'll go after those stories in just a moment. My name is Mike Wallace. The cigarette is the Parliament, another fine product of the Philip Morris Company. The new high filtration filter Parliament presents the Mike Wallace interview. We'll talk with Tennessee Williams in just a moment. If you're thinking about switching to a filter or changing the brand you smoke, there never was a better time to change. Because now it's been confirmed. Parliament recessed filter is best. Tested and confirmed by the United States Testing Company. And here's why. First of all, Parliament has over 30,000 tracks. No other popular filter cigarette delivers less nicotine and tar. Second, in Parliament, there is no tip-to-lip contact. Unlike every other filter, Parliament's filter is recessed, set deep down inside. And because it's recessed, trapped nicotine and tar never touch your lips. Third, Parliament's exclusive recessed filter protects the tobacco flavor, keeps it pure, as no other filter can. Less nicotine and tar, no tip-to-lip contact, flavor pure protection. Confirmed by the United States Testing Company. The all-new High Five Parliament, now on sale everywhere at popular price. And now to our story. In his early life, Mississippi-born Tennessee Williams was a bellhop, elevator operator, shoe salesman, movie usher, waiter, and a solder of earth in a Greenwich Village nightclub. In 1945, he rocketed to fame with his first Broadway play, The Glass Menagerie. He followed that with such compelling work as A Streetcar Named Desire, The Rose Tattoo, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and now Garden District, which opened recently off-Broadway. These plays, as well as Mr. Williams himself, have disturbed, angered, or intrigued the entire country. Let's try to find out why. In Tennessee, first of all, let me ask you this. In so much of your writing, you present a world of brutality, murder, deceit, hatred. Most of us, I think, do not see the world in such stark terms. Why do you?
I don't think I'm unique in that respect as a dramatist. Last week I saw a modern adaptation of Oedipus Rex, in which a man killed his father and married his mother, and after the revelation was came upon him, he put out his own eyes with a golden brooch, and the mother-wife hung herself by what looked like a very delicate red scarf.
I'm not suggesting that you're unique except in your special talents, which are considerable, Tennessee, but it's not your uniqueness. It's the reason for your seeing the world the way you do.
I don't see the world as composed entirely of brutality and violence, in spite of the recent happenings at the John Marshall High School in Brooklyn, and in spite of the intercontinental ballistic missiles and the so-called atom age that we are well into now. I see the world also in terms of the tenderness that most people saw in The Glass Menagerie, and that certainly illumined all our common lives to a certain and in fact a considerable, if not a predominant extent. But Tenet at a summer smoke, and in the Rose Tattoo, yes. Even in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, people remembering me as the author of A Streetcar Named Desire. That's where the virus was.
Well, there was violence also in Orpheus Descending, and there is tremendous violence, even cannibalism in your current play.
No, in my current play, the cannibalism is a symbol, a poetic symbol of the rapacity, which is part of all our human nature.
The rapacity?
The rapacity, yeah.
Well, what do you mean?
I mean the way we use each other in a devouring way in our progress through life. I think we all do that to a considerable extent.
Well, when you say we use each other, people are to be used. People are to be communicated with and used in a certain set. But the sense which you seem to understand is that people use each other the wrong way, and almost invariably, it seems to me, almost invariably, in your plays, the good is devoured by the evil.
Or I wouldn't say that. In fact, I think I've yet to write a play in which some virtuous quality in the human being did not prevail at the end of the play. Even in Blanche, the stick-on named Desire, you see her walking off with gallantry and courage on the arm of the doctor leading her to the sanitarium. In God and the Sick, we end upon a gesture of compassion, which the doctor, who is then bribed enormously to perform a lobotomy on the girl, places his hands tenderly upon her head and recognizes the truth of her story, the poetic truth of it, not the literal truth of it.
But you yourself say we end in a gesture of goodness. But it seems to me that most of the fabric, but not just to me, it seems that way to the critics too. I think that virtually every important critic has said this about your plays. For instance, Richard Watts, whom I know you admire, has described your characteristic mood as, quote, steeped in passion, hatred, frustration, bitterness, and violence.
I don't contest that at all, Mike. It's quite true.
And what I am after is, if I can find it out, if you want to tell me, do you really feel that way about the world?
I'm having a big argument on this subject with my analyst, Mike.
Right.
I tell him that I don't feel that way, and he wants to find out if I do or I don't, and we're still exploring it. I think I feel more affection and love. He thinks that certain early conditions and experiences in my life created a lot of anger and resentment in me, which I am taking out now through my writing. What may be right, I can't say.
What kind of condition, if you care to say? What kind?
Have you ever heard of the term? He doesn't want me to use these analytical terms. He doesn't approve of them. But I do a lot of reading, and I use them to him. He doesn't use them to me.
Yeah.
And a term that I've come across lately is the infantile omnipotent.
Infantile omnipotent.
Yeah, that is what we all have as babies.
Yeah.
We scream in the cradle, and mother picks us up, she comforts us, she suckles us, she changes the diaper, whatever is giving us discomfort is tended to. And through this house, she rocks us to sleep and all that. And whatever gives us discomfort, we find is relief in response to an outraged cry.
Well, this is an experience that is common to all of us, yet we don't all see the world the way you seem to in your writing.
This gives the infant a feeling of omnipotence. All it has to do is to cry out, and it will be comforted, it will be tended to. All right. We grow up a little, and we discover that the outcry doesn't meet this tender response always. After a while, the mother realizes that it's no longer an infant. She gets impatient with its outcry, or maybe the father gets impatient with it. Anyway, it meets a world which is less permissive, less tender and comforting than the maternal arms, the maternal comfort. And therefore, then it becomes outraged, it becomes angry. And that's where most of our neuroses spring from the time when the maternal world, which has made us feel omnipotent, because every time we cry out, we're given attention and love and care. That ceases to work anymore. We meet more indifferent world, and then we become angry. That is the root of most anger and most...
that is the root in the world. What you have told me is your increasing anger in your writing.
Well, not mine, but everybody's.
Well, then tell me this. Should your analysis be a successful course of analysis, can we then expect happy comedies intended?
Never. Why do you always choose? Because I always have comedy in my darkest tragedy. Even in God industry, you'll find a good comedy.
Let me, if I may, use the words of a critic, another critic, to analyze Tennessee Williams, if you don't think this is presumptuous. The critic George Gene Nathan wrote this back in 1955. He said, "I am no psychiatrist, and I don't know what Tennessee Williams, with his almost maniacal preoccupation with the more emphatic impulsing and sensational aspects of sex, is trying to prove to himself. All I know is that," George Gene Nathan is speaking, "is that he seems to be trying awfully hard to conceal both from himself and from us his immaturity and torment by draping them with a literary or dramatic bravado." How do you respond to that kind of a...
I think I only got one good notice from Mr. Nathan, whom I respect, as we all do. And that was for the Glass Menagerie, and even his notice of the Glass Menagerie, he attributed most of the humor to Eddie Dowling. There has never been a real rapport between Mr. Nathan and me, or he is a critic and I as a playwright. But I don't wish to challenge Mr. Nathan's statement because of his position, which I respect. And he is certainly entitled to have whatever view of me he wishes to hold. And he's a venerable person. I mean that in the best sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
I can't hope to please every critic.
And yet, when Orpheus Descending was as badly received as it was, I shouldn't say badly, because nothing of Tennessee Williams is taken less than very, very seriously. But I think that you will agree that it did not receive all of the critical acclaim that you would have liked it to. You took their remarks sufficiently seriously to let it through you considerably, isn't that?
Yes, I was about to use some very strong term. Yes, well, I won't. Yes, well, I'm very vulnerable. All writers are vulnerable, and when they get a shockingly bad press, they are naturally wounded by it, and it gives them pause to reflect, and they don't always just take a Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm. Tennessee, you once told me that you used to lie about your age. You used to subtract the 3 years that you worked in the shoe.
Yes, I told you then. I told you that you were perfectly free to reveal my age if you cared. Do you said I don't think I will.
I'm not interested in that. But what you said at that time was, I didn't think I was living then when you were selling the shoe for the 3 years. What did you mean by that?
I meant that it was suspended animation, at least on a spiritual or mental level.
But you've done so many different things.
It was a 3 years to start the Glass Menagerie.
Mm-hmm.
Not literally, but...
I know what you mean. But those 3 years, you say you were in suspended animation of what kind?
I meant nothing. I meant I was just enduring. As I think many white-collar office workers must do. And I am very, very grateful for those 3 years, because they've given me an insight into the life of the vast majority of people. In fact, they have to endure so much for so little. And that is, I think a great deal about that thing in all my work.
But when you say endure a great deal for so little, just because you sell shoes for a living, your life outside of
it. Sell shoes. My job consisted of getting up at 6:30 in the morning to rise and shine, and going down there, being there at 8 o'clock, and dusting several hundred shoes, several thousand, I think, in sample rooms. Then sitting down at a typewriter and knocking out just not words, but digits. Just digits. Yeah, the numerals.
Mm-hmm.
For about 6 or 7 hours, and then I would be sent forth to J.C. Penney Company with some enormous packing cases full of samples of shoes that I could barely carry. And that was my outing for the day. And this went on for 3 years, and believe me, it was pretty routine and pretty tedious.
And your life away from your work meant that it could not in any way compensate for the work that you had to do.
Yes. It did, because I went home at night and tanked up on black coffee and did my writing. And on the weekends, I went very hard at it and tanked up on a lot of black coffee
Did any of the writing that took place during those 3 years, has that since come to light and been important writing for you in Tennessee?
I think mainly the experience, not the writing. The writing was not worth much.
In Orpheus Descending, Tennessee, one of the main characters says this: "Nobody ever gets to know nobody. We're all of us sentenced to solitary confinement inside our own skins for life. We're under a lifelong sentence to solitary confinement inside our own lowly skin for as long as we live." How much of Tennessee Williams is talking in?
I think about 90%.
Curly.
I believe a lot of that. And I think there are moments when we can get out of it, and those are the great moments in life. The moments we must wait for. Are the moments when we escape from the prison of our skin.
Would you help me to understand a little bit more what you mean when you say escape from the loneliness, the solitary confinement of our skin?
Well, we can feel truly and deeply and passionately for another person. That's what I mean.
The communication for another.
Yeah, when it really happens, and it does happen, even for a person as introverted as I am, it can happen occasionally.
You've also told me, and I think that you have demonstrated it here, that for a long time that you were a lonely man and rather afraid of friendship.
Not afraid of it, but suspicious of it. I'm never certain whether they're liking Tom Williams or Tennessee Williams. You know, that's making my list sound.
Surely.
And I didn't used to be like that. And I deeply resent the fact that becoming prominent as a playwright has made me like that.
Well, why? Because you became a celebrated person, because you became a prominent playwright, did that necessarily make you peculiarly a more lonely man?
Well, I don't know. For one thing, it's made me a target for a great many insincere, approaches from people. People that hoped that, that I, the moment you become prominent in any field, what happened. And that happened, and my problem is to, get back to being Tom Williams again.
Are you solving that problem?
I think so. I hope so.
Tennessee, you've admitted that one of the reasons that you gave this latest play of yours, Garden District, to an off-Broadway theater is that you didn't want to stand the strain of a big on-Broadway opening down. Now, I'm sure that to me it was very difficult to understand that one of America's major playwrights would be that insecure about his own talent.
Well, it's not strange, Mike, if you think about it. All reputations in the theater are inflated reputations.
How do you know?
I mean, nobody is as good as publicity makes him appear. And if he's reasonably objective with himself, he knows that that's true, and it gives him an awfully shaky feeling. And this increases with each production as the reputation grows and as he becomes more conscious of the discrepancy between the reputation and the actual self.
In other words, you, Tennessee Williams, do not feel as important a writer as the rest of the world would seem to regard you?
Certainly not.
You certainly don't feel that you're a fraud.
No, I'm not a fraud, but I'm not the kind of a writer that I want to be, and that a lot of the world seems to.
What kind of a writer do you want to be? What does the world want of you that you feel that you cannot live up to, Tennessee?
In every one of my plays, I fall short of my objective.
Do you consider the body of your writing an important body of writing?
I'm not the person to answer that. Important to me, yes, because it's in all of it. It contains things that I felt passionately.
But do you feel yourself? I don't mean to interrupt, but perhaps this will help a little. Do you feel yourself, for instance, as important a writer as a Hemingway or a Faulkner?
No.
You don't really?
No, I don't. Certainly not.
Why?
Why? Because I just don't, Mike. Why should I?
Why should...
I'm working in a field where the theater is a field where reputations are inflated, you know? Hemingway and Faulkner are working in a field where the publicity is not the paramount factor.
Most of our major Southern writers, Faulkner, Robert Penn Warren, constantly tackle the race question. You never have. Why?
Never tackle the race question. No, I don't think I have. Should I? I mean, it's so apparent. I mean, it's become...
It does not particularly excite you. You do not become passionate about the race problem, which is a serious American problem.
I think it's terribly serious, Mike, and I think that I haven't tackled it because I don't think that I have sufficient first-hand information about it, sufficient first-hand contact with it.
In spite of the fact that you are a Southerner,
well, you must remember that my family moved to St. Louis when I was around... they first moved to St. Louis when I was 8 years old, but I went back to Mississippi to live with my grandparents because of difficulties in the schools in St. Louis. They were not quite as rough as some of the books at school seemed to be, but they were rough enough for me. Since I couldn't take it.
But yet it has never crept into your writing, nor do you think it will in the foreseeable future?
I can't foresee that. I feel very, very tenderly about the Negro race because of the colored nurse that I had as a child. And, about other members of the Negro race. In fact, I think that it's one of the great races of the world, and certainly one of the most artistic and poetic.
Because of the way that you have written, though, you have been attacked by some critics and by certain groups. For instance, the Roman Catholic Cardinal Spellman said this of Baby Doll, your recent film, which in part at least told the story of a seduction. And Cardinal Spellman said, quote, revolting, deplorable, morally repellent, offensive to Christian standards of decency. I exhort Catholics to refrain from patronizing this film under pain of sin. In a moment, Tennessee, I would like to get your reaction to that kind of criticisms, and we'll get Tennessee Williams' answer in just 60 seconds. That's the Parliament story. Parliament recess filter is best. Try Parliament yourself. Now then, Tennessee, an attack came on your writing from Cardinal Spellman in reference to your recent film, Baby Doll. How do you feel about that criticism which I quoted?
Well, I don't wish to attack or reply aggressively to a beloved dignitary of a great church any more than I do to a beloved dignitary of the theater, such as Miss Nathan. I would like to say this, that as I wrote it, I was not conscious of writing anything that corresponded to these terms that he's used against it, that I don't think that it had any corrupting influence on audiences. I think it should have been forbidden to adolescents, to anyone under the age of 16. I think I might ask Cardinal Spellman how he feels about the opposition of the church to birth control, because I think our primary human problem now is overpopulation. And the production of children by families in an economic condition not to bring them up under circumstances that give them a fair chance in the world. Now, I think this has a great deal to do with juvenile delinquency and with the problems in the Brooklyn High School that we've been hearing so much about in the last 2 days, and all over the country and in probably many other parts of the world. Well, I'm sure that in your writing, you have no particular intention of antagonizing any specific group. But why shouldn't a writer antagonize, criticize a group if he feels that way? Hasn't that been the role of the writer in the past? And shouldn't it be today? Yes, I am much more polite and discreet in interviews than I am when I'm working, Mike. When I'm working, I isn't cheat is the talons or claws, so whatever I have to attack with.
When you sit down to write a play, do you ever feel constrained? Are you ever afraid that if you really say what you feel in your heart, you'll shock people so much that they will have nothing more to do with it?
I never write with the intention of shocking, per se. I mean, with that purpose only. I always write wanting to say what I have to say as truly and forcefully and movingly as I can. That is what my aim is.
Tennessee, may I ask you this? What do you think personally about religion, formal religion?
I regard myself as being a very religious man. Every time I have a play opening, I close the door on a certain room and kneel down and pray to God. And I very often receive an answer. In fact, I've always received an answer. This may sound very corny, and no, not at all, but even before plays that I suspected were going to be failures, a Princess Garden District, I did that, and I certainly had a feeling, as if a response to the prayer.
Do you?
That was affirmative.
So this is the prayer of the supplicant. Do you feel any identification with a specific faith, or is God a part of is religion a part of your everyday life?
Well, the most wonderful person in my life, two most wonderful people in my life was my grandfather was a Episcopal clergyman, and his wife, my grandmother, and I was born in an Episcopal rectory, and I grew up in the shadow of the Episcopal Church. I can't say that I've continued to go to it, but my grandfather was devoted to the church, and certainly his sincerity and depth as a person made it impossible for me to ever be against formal religion, per se.
Tennessee, I wish that we had another half hour, but our time is used up. I thank you for taking the time to come and spend with us, and I wish you all good luck with Gardening District.
Thank you.
It has been said that a nation's art reflects its soul. In Tennessee Williams, America has elevated to the top rank a poet preoccupied with tragedy and even with spiritual cannibalism. This in itself may say as much about our time as all of Mr. Williams' plays.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more.